Today we've reached one of the little milestones in working on this. I'm looking at how this all dried up. What I have is 2 coats of white, sanded with 600 paper just a little bit to make sure I don't have any flaws at all. Again, the best trick of all is to use your hand. Your eye, especially with white or a light color, can be fooled. I don't feel anything that needs to be addressed. Now, so what I thought I'd do today, and I guess this is going to be, I guess we're going to find out by the end of the day. I wanted to lay out the trim. Now, we have trim on the bike that's pretty much matching. We have a matching stripe. And over the years, I've designed a lot of semi-custom and custom paint jobs. But I always like, there's a fine line to walk between. It's a unique paint job, and then it turns into, I don't know, aliens from outer space very quickly. But I'm trying to keep this. The objective is that it's something that the factory maybe could have, would have, should have made. And the stripes all have to match. There's nothing that disturbs me more than I see a bike and it's got a stripe, a stripe, a stripe, and then a polka dot. Well, again, it's from too many years flying model airplanes, I guess. But anyway, I wanted to show at least once how I laid this out. And it's relatively simple. I know where these lines have to go because I want this stripe to blend into the stripe that's on the tank, and the lettering is going to blend into the lettering, hopefully. But the first thing I want to lay out, and this is called fine line tape, by the way. Whenever you have straight lines, fine line tape is just wonderful. And I'm picking up one of the body lines. The lines of the bodywork, I don't want that. I want it out. Actually, I want it out a little bit more than that. And always brand new razors. This way you cut yourself as often as possible. Now also I want to carry this line up around here. And that, I'd like it to go right into the middle, if I could. And I'd like this line, and we're just going to have to look and see if this is going to work, because we're dealing with an indentation here. Yeah, we're going to go for it. We're going to see if this works out. And again, the nice thing about any tape, wall tape, if you don't like it, you can peel it right up. But using this fine line tape is a nice way to just lay out what you think is, and I'll show this in 1 second. And I don't want this going around, because then I would have to have the tank pick up, and if it ends on everything just a little bit from the end. Now, factories do that because they do everything with stickers. But you're not limited to that when you're doing paint. And I'm hoping I can get this area here to be blue with the white stripe around it. We'll find out. But again, as many times as I have to lay this tape out, it won't really matter, because I can always go back and change it again now. It's nice if you have fingernails. And I like to keep this an equal amount. Let's just see if we can do this. And believe me when I say, when you look at a magazine and you see a bike and you say, I could do that. And what happens when you go to lay out the tape and you go to pick the colors out, and you have so many choices, I got to go back a little bit. What happens is, it's not as easy as you think it is. It starts out looking really easy. And somewhere in the process you say, wow, this takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of thought, unless you're willing to accept that it's going to be in some way mismatched. That ended nice. That ended nice. I'm not sure I got the exact shape I want here, but there's an easy way to tell. Let me just trim this off. Again, that's the nice thing about dealing with tape. Now, if we were doing something like the stripe in the middle of the tank, we'd want to work off a center line. In this case, I'm trying to make everything match if possible. By the way, there's a new show on it's on My Velocity channel called Naked Speed. I watched the first episode this morning, and it looked like a takeoff on cafe racers, but I always love to watch other people work on bikes. And they had some cool stuff. So if anybody's looking at Velocity Channel, and with that big TV, it really comes in nice. It really looks pretty cool anyway. Okay, now what I've done, this is the kind of thing it's helpful to see somebody else do it before you do it. I'm not married to this yet. I can change it, but this is the basic shape I want to have, because this is a similar shape to the trim that's on the seat. Now I have to take this off for 1 second. I have to put up the gas tank here, and I'll try to show. Let me see if I can do it this way, a little bit of an angle. Although I don't know if this is going to be practical or possible. What I'm trying to do is carry this down onto the fairing, because that fairing bolts right up there. And make it look like maybe the factory had this in mind when they did it. I don't know. These are the two lineup points. Now, what I did that's wrong, and I can see already what's wrong, is the stripe is too thick on the top. I've got to move the piece on the top. But that's why you do this. Unless you don't care if it, well, if you don't care, of course, why even bother painting a bike? So now what that tells us is I want to move this stripe down, and I think we'll be pretty close. So this will be relatively easy. I just lay out the new stripe. And what's going to happen, this stripe is going to wind up going right into that area, which I guess is going to be a negative thing, but let's put this one right on top. Maybe we could deal with that. Now, two things I really like to watch on TV. I like to watch Chip Foose when he makes his drawings, because obviously I have no talent at all for that. And then I love to watch, they say they're going to call in some expert to lay out the tape. And I keep thinking, if I ever need another job, maybe I could get $3 an hour to do this somewhere. Let's get this up. That's why you need a new razor. You don't want to chew up the paint if possible. I spent a lot of time wet sanding out the first coat of white. And because it's white, this stripe, it's hard to imagine this, but without this white stripe, this paint job would absolutely die a slow death. The white stripe is what makes this pop out. Now, I may be even closer now to what I really want. But again, that's the idea with tape. And yeah, sketches are nice, and I mean, if I had talent like Chip Foose says, I'd sketch some of this out. But I don't sketch anything out. What I do, it's in my mind's eye, and I say, that's what it's going to look like. Now, I'm thinking the other thing, that's going back too far. Maybe we could move that back. Let's take a look at it. Again, this is the give and take of this kind of a thing. But the thing that's good is, once you have it, you have it. That's goes without saying. And for the rest of all eternity, you can look at it. So just line up the holes. The bottom is perfect. It's the top. Yeah, the top looks okay now. But that back line has to move just a little bit further forward, I think. Yeah, a little bit further forward. It's going to look as this. See, this gap here, I want to make that same gap on this side to be a match. Sounds like none of this stuff would matter, but when the whole part is done like this, to lay this tank out and get it, it's important to me. If this line of decals ran parallel to this, but it doesn't. It starts at a disappearing point and then fans out this way. And that's how the decals on the tank are going to be. It starts out as if the whole bike started at the tail section, and as it got forward, it turned into a bigger fan section. So Now, from looking at that, and again, this is just, we could be doing this all day. You never know until you're happy. But that's the whole point with tape. Tape is such a nice medium to work with, and once it's done, you're really in love with it, then you can paint. But until then, you're really, I'm going to try to catch that edge. I should just come up enough. That would probably, let's see, that'd be about the same gap. And doing model airplanes, it's very difficult sometimes to get the trim on the tail and the wing and the rudder and to get it all similar. It's really an art unto itself, but and without this, and this is all little detail stuff that if it's not right in the final product, you look at it and you say, what the hell was he thinking? Oh yeah, sometimes it's something small. There'll be a curved line and a curved line. I look at even the British magazines where there's guys restoring things all the time, and they missed, sometimes there'll be a stripe and all of a sudden at the back of the bike it doesn't know what to do. Or it looks like it belongs on something else, or maybe I'm just too critical. Right, now, after doing this for so many times, I think that's pretty much going to be the outer edge of what we want. Now, once I'm done with that, now I take what I call, this is tape that it's made with a stickiness that it doesn't leave any glue down. It's a low tack tape. This will be my gap between the 1/4 inch stripe and the 1/8 inch stripe. This is going to come off, but if you look at this close, you don't have to be really careful about this. This is not high-tech stuff. You could always, of course, use other fine line tape, but what's nice is this is a different color, so it gives you a little different edge. And when I looked at all these, this shape that amounts to be, I don't know, there's usually a name for it. On a model plane, you would say it's a this shape or that shape. We call it axes or arrowheads or whatever. On a motorcycle, this, and a lot of bikes don't even put a paint job on. They just paint it all one color, which I guess is cool. Like now when I did the Sophia bike, the Ferrari bike, which we call Sophia, now if you see this, what that's going to be, if you look at that, that's our separation line. That's where the line is going to be for the separation. Now I take out, and again I have a whole bunch of small rolls of tape. The stuff with tape is, it's a good idea to buy new tape if you're starting a project, because as tape gets older it gets stickier and stickier and it leaves more and more residue down there. But in our case, we use enough of it that it just gets used up. So now from this point on I can lay out my 1/4 inch stripe. And again, I'm working from the outside in. Now, I've done a lot of the things that are already on YouTube in pictures, in the picture format, which is good. But I think the video, especially now that we have a high-def camera. Now, I played some of these recent videos on my 65-inch Sony, and they play really nice. So I hope they play on. And I'm sure most people look at it on an iPhone, or, you know, while they're going to the bathroom or something, which is okay. Okay, so here we go. Now I've even had people ask me, how do you get those stripes so even? Well, I'm trying to show, I don't know if you'd call it the tricks of the trade, but just from doing this a lot, It's not like my skills are that amazing, but I have done a lot of it. And that blue tape really serves a good purpose. It gives us a nice, you can see the edge, where if you're using two tapes the same color, working off a different edge. I figured if I just showed one of these panels, we laid out all the stripes pretty much the same. And we really won't know until we're done if this is going to be the look that I was dreaming of or wanted. Or sometime when you pull a tape up, you say, oh, Jesus. But it's that wonderful part of painting stuff. You're never married to it. As long as you can find some sandpaper, you can get rid of it, paint remover, whatever. I wanted to show. I cut toward the corners, the brand new razor. That usually give me nice, neat corners. Where the two tapes come together, I'll put my fingernail in it, a little bit that I have. You do this kind of work, you generally don't need a lot of manicures. And sometimes it's little tricks and tips. And whenever I'm watching all these car restoration shows and stuff, and because I'm not a car guy, I don't know how many of them I can use, but every once in a while I find something that really is useful. Something I can take to the bank. And some people just like watching. I like watching to show how it's made. I have no idea why. The other night I watched how they made ketchup. I don't even like ketchup. Okay, now we got, and as long as I could show this, what that blue tape did, it spaced out our stripe. Now I can pull this up, and my stripes are pretty much where I want them to be. I can trim the corners if there's any part of this corner that's not right. Get these corners all nice and neat. Again, I'm pressing down all the corners. Now, once I know I have the shape I want, I can really put some pressure on this now. If I still want to move something, right now is the time to move it, but I think we're going to live with this. I think this is pretty much going to be a good one. Now, from this point on, and I want to make sure I give credit to our late friend Mr. Prey, who was a professional custom car painter. WALT PREY is his name. He made some spectacular, was in California, some spectacular paint work, both on model planes and on hot rods and dragsters and things. But in the course of our interaction in the world of model planes, what he taught me was, I got to show this. We got a minute left on this video. Let's show it. I get out my old tin foil. You don't really need heavy duty. The reason I have heavy duty today is because I pirated this from Karen. But if you lay out, if you use newspaper or Playboy magazines or something, it always seems to bleed some ink down into the part. Tin foil has a lot of nice properties. Number one, you can lay it out, take some blue painter's tape, the stuff that really isn't sticky, and you can pretend you're Chip Foose. And you just go right there. Woo! Now we know that this is going to seal real well. We can wrap it right around. We want it to stick to the back. Stick down there. A lot of people really dread backmasking a project, but if you use, well, there's a lot of common sense. It's really not that difficult. We basically have the hardest part done already. We can take our tin foil out here. We don't need a whole piece now. Now, if I get some blue paint on this, I'll get a little bit of idea. I can bring it back in and do that same thing with the tank. See if I like the shape, if it coordinates, if it matches. And I can do that before I mask off the other part. So if I want to change the shape, I don't have to redo two of them. And using tin foil, ever since WALT PREY taught me that trick, it's made my life a little easier. That can go under there. And we are ready to mix up our blue paint. Make sure none of our paint is peeling up. Now, another trick that's worth its weight in gold. When you put this masking tape on, there's a couple of do's and don'ts. Never, ever take this outside and put it in a cold garage. This tape gets very sticky when it gets 40, 30 degrees. And then if you leave it out there overnight, you'll never get the tape off. So in this case, I want to paint this and I'm going to bring it in the house. And we don't have any babysitting jobs today, so I can let this dry in the back room with the door open. It'll probably be 50, 60 degrees in there. But tape, as it gets cold, gets stickier, and as it gets old and cold, it gets stickier and stickier. So, and this should make any project that we're doing, give us the option of doing some custom work, some nice work. And I like to, another question, I like to paint this part 2 or 3 coats, make sure it's good, take it out in the sun, let it dry, in the case of urethane, overnight, and then take the tape off, and then card off the edges. Now, I hope some of this has given you some ideas, or let's just get something here. I want to, as long as we got a minute here. I'm not sure when we're going to run out of money here. But that part, when it's all done, it pretty much should look like that. Has the double stripe. Up here we'll have the Kawasaki lettering. We'll have that custom windshield in there. See what happens with all these projects as they start unfolding. I get to where I can't sleep at night. I want to see the next step, I want to see how that's going to look. And even in the case of this, I want it all to match. I want when it's all put together, and what we're going to try to do in the spring is have an assembly day. We'll try to do some video on that. Get a couple of my friends over here, which is always an easy thing on a Saturday or something, and put the whole bike together on one day really carefully. Now when you're putting, an example, you're putting the front fender on, or the fairing pieces all go on with the overflow tank, you don't want to scratch anything up. So it's really important, after we've done this amount of work, I really don't want to scratch it all up. But anyway, I hope that, well, from this little adventure, and it's taken us 15, 20 minutes, and we're ready to paint. And again, if anybody has any real questions or interest, my email address is windyu@aol. Hope you enjoyed the video.